like to move, because now we have talked about the 1G ethanol, and we know that there has been a lot of increase in demand and as well as the increasing supply from the 1G ethanol. However, in order to go for the sustainable fuels, that is sustainable ethanol, we also need to look for the sustainability of biomass feedstock, because there is a lot of competition, and also diversification of sugar or many furthermore improvement and value addition to ethanol, that is also required. And we have very good expert. I think the Praj industry, it's known that Praj industry has done very well in the ethanol sector, not only in India, but across the globe. And I would welcome Mr. Joshipura is here, who is CEO of Praj Industries, which is a company of global footprint in the bioenergy space, encompassing both in 1G as well as 2G technologies for ethanol production. They have also, with this technology, there also government has set up a couple of plants there for 2G ethanol. And without saying much, before, we would like to listen your thoughts on the advanced biofuels and 2G ethanol specifically, and then also mention about what are the challenges and how these are being addressed as technological challenges, how Praj is going to address, have addressed already, and is going to address the future challenges. So over to you, Mr. Joshipura, please. Unmute yourself, Mr. Joshipura.
Yes, sir. So good morning and good afternoon to my colleagues on the panel and other attendees to this seminar. As Dr. Kasturi, you said that sugary and starchy feedstocks and the 1G ethanol obviously have a very definitive role to play in the overall bioeconomy, and we can see an increasing role for the cellulosic biomass as well, and that is where the second generation ethanol technology steps in. We need to, so let me share the background. In India, we are currently building 3 second generation bio refineries, one for each of the large oil marketing companies, which are Fortune 500 companies, based on rice straw as feedstock. And we expect that starting some Q2, end of Q2 of next calendar year, we'll start commissioning one at every 6-month kind of a period. So we'll have 3 plants commissioned by the time we reach summer of 23. What's important to understand is that the cellulosic biomass by itself is a complex feedstock to handle, and it has taken and several companies in the world have actually invested time, effort, and money to develop the technology around this. What's very important is, as you rightly put, and I think the whole world is right now focused on, is the fact that we all want to make sure that we go to a net zero or less carbon intensive economics. And for that, I think cellulosic ethanol has a very, very large role to play, because we can see a reduction in excess of 85% compared to conventional fuels if we go to the cellulosic ethanol route. Given that strong value proposition, apart from the fact that, of course, you produce ethanol, which is same as any 1G ethanol as well, what's happening in the space is very clearly that the big challenge in front of the 2G technology today is how does it become commercially viable? And there are several steps that are required to be taken. One is, of course, on the technology side, where a continuous effort is required to drive down the capital cost as well as the operating cost. And I can share with you that over the last 3 years, we've been able to drive down the capital cost by a margin of almost 30% and operating cost also by a margin of 30%. Compared to where 3 years ago, we are already at a 30% lower level, but we need to continuously work on same to further improve its viability. The second point is about how do we go about creating very specific blending mandates for the 2G ethanol, because as we are right now witnessing, the European Union has taken a lead, and under the RED II directive, they have now mandated that as they move forward to 2030, they would like almost 7.5% of the blending to happen through the 2G ethanol. So, and only all incremental blending will come through the 2G ethanol route. The third dimension, therefore, is blending mandate. We have talked about carbon intensity reduction, and that it also leads itself to saying what kind of a taxation regime we should have. Today, we pay no value for high carbon versus a low carbon intensity operation. It's the same value that gets perceived. And I think that is where things will change as we move forward, because in order to move the society to a low carbon intensity regime, we will have to tax products differently. And as was being earlier mentioned, if we have a E100, then that needs to get taxed differently than E85, then E20, and then no blending at all. And I think those needs to be the drivers for changing the people's preferences. I'm sure the technology will keep pace. Brazil has already shown the way that it is possible to run automobiles on flex fuel engines. And I think that is something that we should also see. Already a lot of work is happening in that direction. One other area where a lot of work is underway and some successes are also visible is the development of co-products out of these 2G biorefineries. Because if we can create commercially successful models for creating co-products, it is possible to improve the viability of the overall biorefinery. And as I was mentioning earlier, we have already moved in the last 3 years from a negative IRR to a positive IRR situation, from almost a minus 10-12% IRR to now a situation where we are at a positive 12% IRR. So a big journey has been undertaken, but we need to further improve this, and the work is underway. Co-products play a very, very important role. We have just announced from Praj the rollout for 2 successful commercially ready to commercialize product lines. One is biobitumen, which comes as an outcome of the lignin valorization attempt that we have undertaken in a very significant way. We all know that in 2G biomass, when we use, we'll have significant amount of lignin that will be available. In absence of a co-product, we'll use it as a fuel, but that's not required if we can find a much higher value. So bitumen or biobitumen is a very clear route out there for which we just announced. The second one, which is equally important, is lignosulfonates, which are from India's perspective very important, because today India imports this entire requirement of lignosulfonates, which are used as binding elements in concrete. When we create concrete mixtures, they are used as moisture binding elements. And I think that's something is a clear import substitute for India. The virtuosity of second generation ethanol cannot be understated, because the waste becomes wealth for farmer, because now they have a value for their straw. The local pollution that gets created, and right now many of you, those of you are in embassy in Delhi, and some of my other colleagues on the panel who are residents of Delhi are already experiencing it in terms of heavy smoke that they have to live with when the farmers burn off the residues in the field. If we use it to that extent, it substitutes imported crude oil, which means as a country we save foreign exchange, and that saved foreign exchange actually is put back in the hands and pockets of our farmers. So the wealth of the country actually goes up. We of course improve our energy security, because that is what it, and the most important, there is abundance of feedstock right now, which is completely renewable. And I think that is the most significant positive aspect. So right now, as the world is watching the 3 biorefineries that are coming up, I think from a sugar industry perspective, there is a very important biomass that could also start to play an important role as we go forward, and that is bagasse. How do we find a higher use of bagasse? Because it is now known that when you use it in thermal processes versus bioprocesses, the efficacy is almost double for bioprocesses. So we will have to find a way of using bagasse also as a feedstock. Already technology is developed and is underway to create either on a bolt-on model. Brazil already has a very successful case in Raízen, who have demonstrated that bagasse can be successfully converted to ethanol, and the technology is also available here in India with us. So we will be in a position to see bagasse moving as a feedstock apart from the sugary feedstock that we talked about in terms of juice, molasses B or C. So as we move forward, I think expanding of the feedstock base, abundance of feedstock, and all the intended benefits starting from climate change all the way to individual farmers augur well for the second generation technology. With that, I would hand it over back to Dr. Kasturi. Thank you very much.